I don't know. I'd say I'm reasonable.
Okay, that's completely unreasonable.
I'm reasonable.
I'm unreasonable.
You have no idea just how reasonable I have been.
Reasonable synonyms are sensible, rational, practical, fair, appropriate.
Fitting, suitable, logical.
All things I would definitely say describe me.
Do they describe you?
Welcome to I'm Reasonable with Zainab Johnson.
I'm reasonable.
Hey, you guys, welcome to another episode of I'm Reasonable with Zainab Johnson. I am Zainab Johnson, a little bit late, but here nonetheless. On a scale from the lady in the Uber eating the Doritos to 10, how reasonable have we been this week? Before we get into all that, because we're going to talk about it, I'm in Vancouver, so you know the setup is going to be a bit different. I'm a little bit subdued because I am, and like a little bit mellow because I am tired. But we'll talk about it in What's Up with Z. But before we do all of that, let's get into the dates, right? Let's get into my touring dates. I just want to remind you guys while I have you. September 13th and 14th, I will be in Bloomington, Indiana. That is my only September date as of now. September 13th and 14th, Bloomington, Indiana at the Comedy Addict. The Raleigh, North Carolina date is being rescheduled. I do not have a new date for that yet, but it is being rescheduled. October 17th through the 19th, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. October 25th and 26th, Detroit, Michigan. November 8th and 9th, St. Paul, Minneapolis. November 11th, Amsterdam. November 14th, Geneva. November 15th and 16th, Paris. As I said last week, Paris, those first two shows are completely sold out. And so right now we're working to add 2 late shows. So when I do add those 2 late shows, when they go on sale, make sure you guys get those tickets because I won't add any more shows after that. So that's November 15th and 16th in Paris, France. And then November 18th through the 23rd, I'll be in London, England, November 18th through the 23rd. Then November 29th through December 1st, I will be in Ontario, California, November 4th. See? December 4th, I will be in Austin, Texas. It's a ways away, but I'm actually really looking forward to being in Austin. I might even arrive like a day early because I've never been to Austin before, just to kind of explore the city before I leave there to go to do my Houston dates. So again, December 4th, I will be in Austin, Texas. What is wrong with me? December 6th. Through the 8th, I will be in Houston, Texas, December 6th through the 8th. Then January 16th through the 18th, I have Washington, D.C. back on the schedule. That's 2025, top of 2025, dead of the winter. New administration will be in office. We don't know who yet, but we're going to talk about it. So that's January 16th through the 18th, Washington, D.C., and February 21st through the 23rd is my new Chicago date, February 21st through the 23rd. While I have you, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. The subscriptions are growing. I really want to, because YouTube keeps sending me like emails and things like that, like, do a membership and, have these like tiers and things like that. And I think that is really cool to like give people who want it like exclusive content. However, I can't commit to that. Just this week, I've been trying to find a time to give you guys this little podcast, and so, yeah, but subscribe. In the meantime, subscribe and go ahead and give it a thumbs up. And if, as you're listening, you like what you're hearing, then go ahead and share it with someone who you think would also like it. So What's Up with Z? I am in Vancouver, and I'm filming the 4th and final season of the show that I'm on, which is called Upload. It is available on Prime Video. It's only available as of now on Prime Video. The first 3 seasons are out. A lot of people who are diehard fans, they had no idea, or just really love the show and watch it. They had no idea that season 3 was out because we couldn't promote it last year because it was during the writer's strike and the acting strike. And so season 3 is out. So if you're like, girl, I I watched that show, and I watched the first 2 seasons. I'm waiting to watch the third one. Y'all on the fourth one. The third one is already out and available. You just go to, matter of fact, I'll put it in the details of this podcast as well, so you guys can just click on it and watch if you want. Also available on Prime, since we plugging stuff on Amazon Prime, right, is my 1 hour special, my first, but definitely not my last 1 hour special, HIJABS Off. So if you have not watched that, go ahead and check it out. I know the title might be, I get a lot of messages, how dare you? Dare I might. But I think it's a pretty good special. So if you haven't seen it, go check it out. And if you've watched it and rewatched it, thank you. Thank you so much. All right. So like I said, I'm here. I had a hard time on set yesterday. Let me just say this. My castmates are phenomenal. Everybody that works on the show, they're phenomenal. Our creator, our writers, our producers, even Amazon as our network, everybody is really outstanding. Like really, I am so grateful. And I'm not trying to cushion it like, and then comes the blow, but still within that, like some things can be the most ideal situation and it's not going to exempt you from experiencing some frustration, experiencing maybe some discomfort, right? Experiencing some vulnerability that you don't really want to exist in that moment. And so that was my day yesterday. On top of the fact that I think I just forgot, because like every day I've been drinking an espresso and everybody knows how addictive coffee is. And if you are a coffee or espresso drinker, you know that the moment you stop drinking it, those caffeine headaches, they are brutal. They're brutal. And yesterday, the caffeine headache hit me maybe midday. I had a pickup time at 4:30 a.m., right? Which is already just early, just period. If you got all the sleep in the world, if you having a balanced diet, if you ain't got no other stresses in the world, nothing else to think about, still having to be ready, not be up, but having to be ready by 4:30 a.m. to leave your house or wherever you're staying. It's just a lot, right? And so it hit me at about 1 p.m. That I was having a migraine, and I ate because sometimes I forget. You're not thinking about like, oh, I haven't had coffee today. So that was right around like when we broke for lunch. And so I'm like, I just need to eat food. So I'm eating a bunch of potatoes, right? I'm eating probably more potatoes than I should because I had on a non-forgiving dress. So I'm eating probably more potatoes than I should. But I'm eating that and vegetables, and I had a piece of salmon, and it didn't help. And so throughout the day, for the rest of the day that I'm on set, I'm trying to curb it. So I drank some rooibos tea. Then I start eating pistachios, right? I start eating pistachios, and then I get wrapped. I get wrapped at like 5 p.m. I get in the car to go home. The headache is pounding. It is pounding, right? And I'm in the car just trying to figure out what to do. My family is in California staying at my house. And so my young nephews, who are 4 and 7 years old, they were calling me on FaceTime, trying to get like the Wi-Fi passwords and all of that. And so I was trying to give them, I ain't got to set up like an Airbnb. When you walk into an Airbnb, they got everything in a notebook and a binder. Like, this is all the information you need. I ain't have that, right? And so I'm on the phone with my nephew. I'm on FaceTime with my nephews, and this migraine, and the driver is driving me back to where I'm staying, and this migraine is just getting worse and worse and worse by the second. Like I said, I wrapped at about 5 or 5:30 p.m. So that means we're sitting in traffic. So it's a lot of stop and go. It's just like I'm thinking about, oh my God, I got to get back, and I got to. What's today? Tuesday. It's Tuesday evening. Oh God, I got to put out the podcast, right? Now, truth be told, you guys, I kind of taped the episode the other day, but it was so long. It was so long, and I didn't like, I'm using my phone and whatever. The sound wasn't really great. I was like, I can't, this is not right. This is not right. It ain't going to be regular like me in my office, but we got to do it better than this. Right. And so I'm thinking about all of these things. And then I see the rest of the pistachios, right? I see the rest of the pistachios, like kind of like on the top of my bag, like they're in like a little cup on the top of my bag. And I'm like, you know what? Nuts are healthy fat. Let me shove these pistachios in my mouth, and maybe this will like hold off this migraine, right? If you eat pistachios, you guys probably haven't noticed it yet. Maybe you have, but if you eat pistachios, sometimes the pistachio don't be all the way open, right? And so I didn't want to crack it. I did not want to crack it with my nails. These are my nails, right? I have on Alicia nails. Alicia, my character, always has dark nails, right? And so I have these, my nails were done, right? I got a Russian manicurist gel, whatever. But I did not want to break it because it's like continuity, right? And so I cracked the nut in my mouth and cracked my tooth. Look. Now, y'all want to know what was the most unreasonable thing I did in that situation? I didn't stop eating the pistachios. I said to the driver, I said, I think I cracked my tooth. He stopped the car. He said, oh, no. And you know, Canadians are so polite. He said, oh, no, eh? That's serious, eh? I said, yeah, I cracked my front tooth. And y'all, I got to be on camera every day for the next month. And I kept eating the pistachio. So on a scale from 1 to 10, how reasonable have I been? Not very reasonable at all. Let's get into these topics. So last week, I got my trusty laptop in my lap. Last week, I said that we would talk about the DNC, right? And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because this episode isn't going to be very long. But last week was the DNC, the Democratic National Convention. Both major parties have one. The Republicans, they had their national convention as well. And if anybody doesn't know what the national conventions, whether it's Republican or Democratic, if you don't know, like, what's the point? Because admittedly, I didn't. I was like, why they got to come together to have a party and do speeches? Like, I don't understand why they got to just go somewhere specific to do this. But then I decided to get the information because I'm realizing if one person has a question, if one person doesn't know, then that means other people don't. And so the Democratic National Convention is basically the end of our primary voting process. And so, you know, earlier in the year, there were primary elections, and each party chooses a candidate, right? And for the Democrats, that candidate was Joe Biden. And then Joe Biden, as we know, decided that he was not going to seek re-election and endorsed Kamala Harris. And so really what happens is it starts at the primaries, and then the ending of it, like the official choosing and nomination and confirmation of who the representative of that party is going to be for that election cycle is decided, announced, announced, and confirmed, and then celebrated and sent off at the national conventions. And so with the Democratic National Convention in particular, because the person that is now our nominee, our representative, you know, hopefully future President Kamala Harris, now VP, because she wasn't the one that was originally voted for in the primaries, at this Democratic National Convention, the delegates, they were able to have a free vote, like just vote for whoever. Obviously and clearly, the majority vote, if not all the votes, went to her, and that was understood going in. But that is the purpose of the convention. There were so many speeches. I counted the amount of speeches. So it started on a Monday and went through Thursday of last week. And we started off with like really strong speeches, right? From like the Obamas, we had the Clintons, we had Oprah, we had celebrities. It was Kerry Washington, there was DL Hugley. We'll get into that. And then we had Joe Biden, President Joe Biden. He actually started it off on Monday. And then the headliner, of course, was Thursday night was Vice President, hopefully future President Kamala Harris. And I just counted the amount of speakers that went on that day before her. I believe, if I remember correctly, it was like 40 speakers. And these speeches are ranging from like anywhere from like 5 to 7 minutes all the way to an hour, you know? But that many yo, I'd have had to go back to my hotel. I would have had to get a couple of meals. I'd have had to have snacks in the bag. I would have had to have on flats. I would have had to have on a nice pair of Adidas with some good insoles in there, some comfortable. I would have had to have on compression socks, because that is a long day. Anyway, I'm just going to talk about my highlights. You guys can let me know in the comments, because I'm very interested in hearing whose speeches you liked, who you thought was impactful. I'm going to, I feel like I'm going to talk about the bar. I feel like there was bars in the speeches. Like some of the speeches, I didn't watch all the speeches. And some of the speeches, I watched it on double speed, just in an interest of time in my own life, right? But I'm going to share some of the highlights for me and some of my opinions on some of them. And then I would love for you guys to let me know your thoughts in the comments. Let me know, like, if there's lines that you have in particular speeches that you really thought were impactful, drop them in the comments, please. First of all, like I said, Joe Biden's speech was, he really just solidified his place. It's like, I think a lot of people, and President Biden in particular, really, I think in everything he does, really thinks about his legacy. And I think he wanted it to be very clear that he was here in service of America. He was here in service of the people. And he was here really... He knows that he could not leave it to former President Donald Trump again. And I think he felt like he was proud of the job he did. And very briefly, he then passed the torch to Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. Then, right, that was and everybody, I feel like in everybody's speech, I feel like they were very gracious to President Biden. I feel like they all were like, Joe, thank you. You did well. I think every single person that gave the speech was like, Joe, you did that. Thank you. We appreciate you. We ain't never going to forget you. And you know what I'm saying? We politely are saying thank you for what you've done, and we're just going to continue your work and try to do more. But thank you for what you've done, and we're going to continue without you. But thank you but always keeping you in mind. I feel like that was everybody's respectful way of like acknowledging our president Joe Biden, but also, the reality is that we decided you wasn't the best for the next phase. Then Oprah, let me tell you why Oprah was a highlight for me. A few reasons. One, Oprah looked amazing in that purple. And I think purple is a color that Oprah wears a lot. I think it's a color that Oprah knows looks good on her. And I think it's a color that she knows looks good in contrasting with blues and reds, because that's basically what purple is, right? And she also knows that it looks good on camera. Let me just tell you, I was doing a costume fitting on the day that Oprah did her speech. And I had just finished watching the speech, I think. Or I did the costume fitting the day after. And I had to choose between a purple robe and a gray robe, a dark gray robe. And they was like, what do you want? I was like, I don't really care. Like, I'm whatever. And I was like, but Oprah did. I said, but did y'all see Oprah in that purple at the DNC? And they was like, yeah, she looked really good. And I was like, I know, she looked good in that purple, right? And they was like, yeah. And then the costume designer was like, and purple really does look good on you, Zainab. Like, we've put you in purple before. And I'm like, all right, let's go with Oprah Perp. Let's go with Oprah Perp. The thing I liked about Oprah's speech was that Oprah is an independent, which I didn't know, which is fine. I probably would consider myself an independent. But Oprah is a registered independent. And she was basically like, hey, I vote my interest, but I vote my moral interest, right? Because everybody votes their interest for the most part, hopefully. But she was like, I specifically vote my moral interest. Now, whether that's true or not, let's get into it in the comments, right? But that's what she said. And then she called on all of the other independents and undecided, which I think is really important to specifically speak to, be really, really specific with your message. And I feel like Oprah did that. Listen, this is who I am. This is how I'm registered. And I am talking to the people who are like me in terms of voting status. Because, girl, you a billionaire. So most of us ain't like you. But if you're independent or undecided, let me tell you what made me choose this particular candidate over that other option or those other options over there. Then, of course, we had the wonderful, the amazing, the incomparable, the very regal and strong and just don't fuck with. We had Michelle Obama. And let me tell you, you know what I love about Michelle Obama? First of all, people were like, and did you hear Michelle? It's like, yeah, we heard Michelle's speech. Let me tell you what, Michelle ain't never disappoint since the start in 2007 when we started seeing her on that campaign trail when the girls was real small. And they ain't even get her hairstyle right and her dresses wasn't really fitting her the best. Michelle ain't never get it wrong. The only way I'm going to ever be surprised at Michelle Obama is if she shows up and does not meet our expectations. And here's the thing, the expectations are very high. One, just because it's unfair. Also, two, because she's always given us so much more. So we've just over the years, we've built a very high bar for Michelle Obama. And never once has she not touched that bar very easily. So the only way I'm going to ever be surprised is if Michelle show up and she ain't reaching the bar. Then I'm going to be like, does Michelle need coffee or a pistachio? Stay away from them pistachios, Michelle. But Michelle had some bars. First of all, she said, you know what? Let me talk directly to who going to tell them. I love when Black women speak. Black American women speak culturally in the colloquial way that we do. I don't mean ebonically incorrect. I don't mean ebonically. I don't mean grammatically incorrect. I mean culturally relevant. When she said, who gonna tell them? That is such a Black American colloquial phrasing of words. Who gonna tell them? Who gonna tell them? Who gonna tell Big Mama who gonna tell Auntie Cheryl that she ain't invited to the cookout? Who gonna tell little cousin Mike that his father done found somebody, whatever. I don't want to put in a bunch of negative stereotypes, forgive me. But who gonna tell him? That's us. That's us. Who gonna tell him this job he going for is a Black job? A choir could have came up behind her in Oprah colored robes and been like, hey, and y'all know I don't even know much about the church, but I know how a Black choir could come in. I know that. Who gonna tell him that the job he's seeking is a so-called Black job? What I also like about Michelle Obama is that while her words are very specific and inspiring, she always calls to action. She said it. She said specifically, and I quote, she said, now let's marry hope with action. Like, we can't be sitting here talking about all the ideas. We can't be sitting here saying we gonna do stuff. We can't be sitting here dreaming of something more ideal than this and not have any action to and not provide any action. And as the people leading you guys, we have to be very specific in telling you what those actions are. What is the action needed for it to get done. And so I then appreciated that. And of course, Obama came on after that, right? The audience is cheering. I feel like all of these speeches could have been 30% shorter. If the speech was 30 minutes, it could have been 20 minutes. But the audiences, I mean, that DNC audience, the way they was cheering so much. I'm like, this is 10 minutes. They cheering for 10 minutes. Every speaker, especially Michelle, especially Obama, especially Baracj, had to be like, okay, all right. Thank you, guys. All right. Well, all right. We love the love. All right. Then Obama came on. A lot of people was like, Barack Hussein Obama. A lot of people was like, now Barack, no, he should have let Michelle close the show. Here's the thing. Barack does know that. That's the reason why he going to say it at the top of his speech. Let me tell you something about Barack Hussein Obama. Two things he going to do. He going to point out the elephant in the room. He going to 8 Mile it. He going to be rabbited. Oh, Obama going to say, I'm going to give you everything you about to say against me. I'm going to give it to you first. That's why he came out first 2 lines. Now, I'm the only one foolish enough to follow Michelle. He know. He like, oh, you ain't got to tell me. But here's the reality. I was the president of the United States. My wife wasn't. As fantastic as she is, as fantastic as she was as first lady, I was the president. And therefore, I will always be the headliner. The second thing I like about Barack Hussein Obama is his speech is going to be layered with jokes. I think that if Barack was not a lawyer and then turned politician and then became president, all of those things, I think he truly, in like another life, probably wanted to either be a comedian, a stand-up comedian, or a rapper. Because he be having bars. He said, first of all, he said, when he mentioned Trump, right? Of course, when he mentioned Trump at the DNC, the whole audience, the same way they cheering, now they booing, crazy, boo-boo. Obama stopped. I know this wasn't in the speech. I know this wasn't in the teleprompter. As they started booing, he said, don't boo. He said, do not boo, vote. What we got to do? Yeah, what's a boo? Don't nobody care about a boo. This ain't Apollo. There is no consequence to people who we already know are not for him booing. That does nothing. But let me tell you what does something. You take that energy that's making you boo, and you take that to the polls and you vote. I say, yo, I mean, I know we love Michelle, but listen, don't sleep. Don't sleep on Barack Hussein. Then the next thing he said, right, he's still, it's still in the little part where he addresses Trump. This was the bar, you guys. This was the mic drop. He said, we've seen that movie before. And we all know the sequel is usually worse. I know a speech hate to see Obama coming. I know a speech hate to see the Obamas coming, because what they gonna do is body a speaking engagement. Okay, he was great. Governor Tim Walz, I feel like it wasn't a highlight for me, but I feel like he knows his role, and I used to always say, and a friend of mine always says this too, she used to play team sports, right? Something about team sports prepares you, it socializes you in a way, and it builds something in you that is really second to none, right? That I'm not saying team sports makes you a good athlete. I'm just saying the way you have to work with people, your responsibility to the group, not self, is it really, team sports is a really good way to, and I hate to be like cliche, like, yeah, he was a coach and he was a teacher, and so I'm using a sports analogy and whatever. The reason why is because he did it. You could tell he knows his role on the team, and he said, you know what, I'm gonna be the best this position I could be. And even in his speech, he gave us a ramped up, we in the locker room, we about to go play the biggest game of our lives. and we gonna do it. He threw a nice little callback in there. You know, he was the one he was the first one to say weird. He called that, took off. That went a little bit viral. That started trending. So he brought back weird again. He said, but then here's the thing. In his shorts, he had one of the shorter speeches. His speech was, I don't know, maybe 12 minutes, 15 minutes at most. He was like, this is who I am. This is where I come from. This is what I represent. But it ain't about me. It's about her. And what she has is my full support. And what he know is he probably going to be doing a lot of FaceTiming with Doug anyway. Yes, now I know who Doug is. Okay. I remember in my Juneteenth podcast episode, I was Kiki Palmer. Sorry to this man. I do not know who he is. But now I know that Doug is Kamala's husband. I still do not know really what Doug looks like. If Doug came into my hotel room right now and did not say he was Doug Harris, I would be like, oh, sir, did you need something? I would not know who he was. But hopefully when Kamala becomes president, I will get to know Doug's face very well. But Tim, no, he probably gonna be having to call Doug to be like, hey, so could you run this by Kamala? And that was very clear in his speech. Listen, put me in the game, coach, and I'm gonna do the best that I can. The Clintons spoke, both Hillary, who, of course, again, gave a really, really good speech. And I feel like Hillary also was, I don't know. It just seemed like people had a greater appreciation. Here's the thing. Everybody at the DNC, right? They're probably lifelong Democrats for the most part. The majority of people there. But I still feel like there was an air in the room when Hillary spoke that was like, we're sorry that we didn't ride. Like, we're sorry that we thought you had it in the bag, but just know you're appreciated. We know you lost to somebody so severely unqualified, especially in comparison to you, but also it's about timing too, and it just wasn't the right time. But we thank you. I feel like that's what was, I don't know. I feel like that was the energy given to Hillary. And then, of course, her speech echoed what everybody else's speeches. And I even liked how Jasmine Crockett, I think Jasmine Crockett is a representative. She had a same, like, kind of similar line as Hillary did in her speech, and she went right after. And so she just said it. That happens sometimes when I'm on stage. I'll get on stage and a comic will say something. Of course, I speak very specifically about my experiences, so it's not that. But it's just like, oh, let's say I get up on stage and I'm like, oh, I went through customs or something like that, right? And the comic just mention something about planes or something. I could reference what they just said so that we're not pretending like all of these things are disjointed. Like, we're not pretending like y'all didn't just see what y'all saw, right? And so I appreciated that you can have a script and then go. That's the beauty of these really intelligent individuals, these really wonderful speakers. A lot of them I feel like started in law, and maybe that's what's helping them be so good at like their argument, right? But it's like, yeah, you could veer off script and you can acknowledge what's happening in the room, which is like, dang, she got a very similar, if not the same line that I said, and I'm going after. And there ain't no position where they all looking at everybody else's speeches. That happens in television. You know, they go through our sets, they go through our jokes to make sure one doesn't step on the other. If there's an ensemble thing happening, if there's like a panel thing happening in TV, they definitely, that's one of the other reasons, not just like S&P to like make sure we ain't saying nothing we ain't supposed to say, but also something that doesn't go in line with the networks or streaming's brand, really advertisers. Now I veered off, and we're going to get back on task. So then here's a speech that I feel like no one is really talking about, but I thought it was really good. Bernie Sanders. Here, I like Bernie Sanders' speech kind of in a similar way that I like Oprah's speech. I felt like, so Bernie Sanders is Democrat, but very progressive, right? And last election, Bernie Sanders lost to Biden in the, he was probably the person that stayed until the end. All the people that had to suspend their campaigns, Bernie was the one that had to go up against President Joe Biden in the primaries in 2020 primaries, or 2019 whatever. And so he's progressive, right? And I felt like his speech, I didn't see a lot of speeches. I saw a few speeches from the RNC. And I think this is not an issue with Republicans, right? Because to have Republican values doesn't mean that I don't disagree with all Republican values, right? But I think what happened at the RNC is once people decide to back Trump, they completely throw out what they said that they stood for when they were in opposition to him. And so when they decide to like back him, then they're like, oh, that ain't really happened. Let's just hot. And so that's what I loved about Bernie Sanders' speech, Senator Bernie Sanders' speech. He still got in all them progressive talking points. He like, we got to get big money. We got to get corporations. We got to get private money out the elections. Everybody know I mean, yes, Kamala did raise a lot of money. There's a lot of enthusiasm. But we all know in both parties, there is so much corporate money in it. There's so much private billionaire money in it. And he got on that stage and said all of those things. So he talking about, it's like, yeah, we even need to do that here. I know y'all think I'm way, way, way left, but we still need to move a little bit more left because we need to make this a fair election decided by the people, whether you got $1 or $1 billion. He was like, there needs to be free healthcare. There needs to be free education. Like he still stood on his progressive talking points while he endorsed and said that, rallied his support and his supporters' support for Kamala Harris. And I just appreciated that. It always, when that happens, it makes me feel like I'm not being pandered to. It makes me feel like my intelligence is not being disrespected. It just makes me feel like that it is believed that I and any other person listening is capable of taking the closest version of the truth and still making an informed decision that is hopefully in favor of what they hoping for. Anyway, I don't know if I want to talk about Kamala first or DL first. I'll go with Kamala first. Just because this is all on the same wave, and DL is a little bit different. Kamala's speech was great. Kamala let us know where she came from. She let us know what got her to that very moment, that very stage. I thought I thought that she represented herself very well. She talked about future, right? I feel like that was her, those were the themes, like freedom and future. Freedom, future, and like for everybody. Like I like that she focused on like, it don't matter what you look like, where you come from, because that's really the utopia, right? That's really, I mean, I hope that's what's idealistic, right? Like, yeah, I don't worship in the same way you do. I don't look the same way you do. I didn't come up the same way you do. But I still want this construct that we live in to service us both in the best way possible, in the most healthy way possible, in the most morally sound way possible, right? I want us both to not be starving. I want us both to be joy. I want us both to be able to come home to our families. I want us both, and by both, I just mean whoever is outside of me, right? And I felt like she gave that. What I noticed, though, for me specifically, is Kamala felt very familiar. She felt very familiar to me for the first time. Like, you know how I'm saying, like, Michelle was like, who gonna tell him, right? Kamala felt like I'm familiar with this figure. I don't want to call her like Mamala or Auntie I'm not trying to say that. It just felt like this is a woman I know. She doesn't feel foreign to me. She feels relatable, attainable, and still very strong and present and intelligent and compassionate. There's things that she said that I didn't quite agree with, I think that there's things that she could have leaned more into. I think that she could have given us a little bit clearer, and she'll have to do it from now until the election. She'll have to give us a more clear plan on immigration. And this is a country that has been built and thrived on people coming from, whether by choice or by force, people coming from their homelands. But there still has to be regulations. There has to be, there has to be regulations in place. There has to be some sort of guidance and some sort of structure that works both domestically and for the people that are here and the people that are wanting or hoping or needing to come, right? I think also, I don't know, I heard a lot of chatter about, and I saw this thing going viral. Somebody had posted a tweet or something like that she didn't talk enough about Gaza. And I totally understand that. But I didn't, I'll say this. I felt like, here's the thing. When people want her to talk more about Gaza, what they want her to do is say their position. And she's not going to, she said her position. And there are people who want more, like me. There are people who completely, it's unacceptable. There are people who I have said this term over and over and over, misguided grief and no solution. I would not have personally been mad if she spoke more about it. But I also felt like what she said, I also felt like she addressed it. I do think she'll have to do more work and more specific work, especially in specific regions of the United States, to talk about what they are specifically doing to stop. Yeah, that's fine. You might think because it's her position that Israel has the right to defend themselves. But I don't think that that's the issue for people. I think the issue for people is, well, why y'all, if they're already a nation powerful enough to defend themselves, why do you keep sending more money and more weapons to help them? Also, if you have not seen the amount of deaths, the number of deaths of the Palestinian people specifically is unconscionable. And we know that there are deaths in war. We know that, but it's unconscionable. And so what are you going to do to at least limit your participation in those numbers of deaths climbing? And I think that is, I'm assuming most reasonable people, that's what they're looking for. And I think that that's part of the work that she'll have to do, as she hits the road in between now and the first week of November. Now, DL Hugley. DL Hugley was very interesting. And I think it was interesting to me. Basically, DL Hugley's speech, if you haven't seen it, DL Hugley said his speech was basically like a public apology. And he was like, hey, I judged you, Kamala. I said these things about you. I was not in favor of you. And I did all of that without doing any research. That blew my mind, y'all. Y'all see at the top of this episode, I was like, let me just at least say like really what the convention is, because I'm about to talk about it. And I realized I don't even never really know what the point of it. So let me at least do some simple Googling, right? I ain't about to go to a library. I ain't about to sit down and meet with Congress. I ain't about to go back to college to find out. But let me at least do some simple Googling. But DL Hugley admitted that he did not even hit 2 keys on a keypad and got on a national radio show, got on his millions of followers platform and was like, she's this, and this. That's wild. That's crazy. That's crazy. But here's the thing. I think he got up there and took that bullet because so many people are doing it. We do it every day. We make uninformed decisions. We make uninformed speeches. I be talking in this politics. I talk very, y'all know I'm going to be wrong sometimes. I don't never stand on like, and this is this and this and this because, right? And y'all be writing the comments like, sometimes y'all send me personal DMs, which this is a good time to address it. If I say something that's incorrect, like last episode, I said most presidents are going to be allies of Israel. And that is that I went into this before. I can't really go into it every episode, but unfortunately, it's really a money political land thing. That's it. In terms of them, the United States is not friends with Iran, Iraq, and so that land that Israel occupies in that power, that is very crucial. That's very crucial. And it don't matter your faith. Like people conflate the faith and the color. All of that stuff. It really is. It's really about the money. What I said in my special, the money, sis. The money. It's about the money. So I said most presidents, that's going to be their position. And remember I said Israel ain't even a part of NATO, and for some reason, the United States and European nations, strong allies with Israel, right? Why am I saying that? So somebody sent me a message, a DM I believe, on Instagram, and was like, hey, actually, Jimmy Carter wrote a whole book. They didn't tell me this, but they said Jimmy Carter was actually not for Israel. Jimmy Carter spoke about what was being done to the Palestinians years and years ago. And I'm like, why DM me personally? Put that in the conversation is in the comments. I need to know that, but everybody needs to know that this is public forum. It's public. Like, it's not for me to need to know. It's for everybody to need to know. So thank you. I appreciate the personal messages, but unless you're trying to remain anonymous for some Ask Z you about to tell me, to put it in the comments. You ain't got to DM me. Sorry. Anywho, so DL apologized for that. And I just thought, I was like, so then I had this question, right? I was like, well, it's very reasonable that he owned that and admitted that. But oh my God, what he did was so unreasonable. To get on your radio show, to talk to your millions of followers and be like, she did this, she's the reason why black men were incarcerated, her record is this, and you, like, where did you get that from? If you didn't read a newspaper and you didn't do any research yourself, if you didn't so much as do a Google search, you didn't even call nobody on her staff, you did none of that and still was able to be like A, B, C, and D. And negative things too. Things that go against her. That's so unreasonable. So my question for you guys is, Can you be so unreasonable that when you finally decide to be reasonable, it's too little too late? Let me know what you guys think. I was going to talk about that lady in the Uber, but I don't have time to do that now. There's an Ask Z. It's kind of long, but I'm going to try and get through it. Let me check and make sure I'm not. Okay, this Ask Z. And this person would like to remain anonymous, so I'm going to call him Aubrey. He knows why I'm calling him Aubrey. Hey, Zainab, my name is Aubrey, and we met at your amazing show in Boston. Thank you so much for calling my show amazing. We chatted after the show, and I was the one who told you that I fully expected you to blow up because you truly are talented and have star power or star quality. You go, girl. I'm just happy to witness the rise as a new fan. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. That's very sweet of you. As you would say, anywho, I do be saying anywho. I also mentioned that I have an Ask Z for you. So here it goes. And yes, I would like to remain anonymous, and you will see why. I see why. I have a very good friend who about 3 years ago suffered a stroke. Sadly, she is still not fully healed and back to her former self. She has challenges with mobility, her eyesight, and as a result, she can no longer work. The particular friend is also very religious of Christian faith and frequently posts scriptures and other religious messages on social media. It stands to reason that a big part of her recovery plan is faith-based, and I'm quite sure this provides comfort to her when things seem hopeless. Absolutely. The thing that provides me comfort when I feel like I have no power in a situation is my faith in Allah. So, yeah. Recently on Friday afternoon, I swooped her up to take her to lunch to see how she's doing and just catch up. I know she doesn't get out much, so I try to be a good friend when I can. After this lunch, we went around the corner of the restaurant to a little artisan type jewelry shop and suggested we go in and look around. And Aubrey suggested that they go in and look around. In addition to jewelry, the store carries all sorts of things, including crystals and various healing stones. I decided to purchase a stone, so Aubrey decided to purchase a stone for her that was said to promote wellness and healing. It was just a small gesture to encourage her and support her healing. It cost $7, so we're not talking a big investment here. I know where this is going. On Sunday, she calls me and says, I can't keep the stone. Apparently, it goes against her religious beliefs. Yo, that apparently is telling. That apparently lets us know how you feel about what she's saying. Apparently. Who gonna tell her? Apparently. I responded in what I think was a reasonable way and said, I understand, so just throw the stone away. No big deal. So that should have been the end of it. But she felt the need to call me the next day to apologize and explain again. In my mind, it was over. Just throw the stone away. Why is this becoming a thing? Then my mind started having other thoughts, which I would love to hear if you think are unreasonable thoughts. The thoughts being, I was raised as a Christian too and taught that God created all, exists in all, is everywhere, omnipresent and omnipotent. If that is true, did God not create the stone? Is God not in the stone? If my friend is concerned that the stone is man-made and possibly carries some voodoo or something, is she not taking prescription medicines, which are absolutely man-made? She is. So far, I mean this with no disrespect, modern medicine and faith have not changed or improved her condition yet. I stay hopeful for her. But wouldn't it be amazing if God sent her the healing stone through me? Some believe there's no accidents. I saw no harm in giving her the stone, but also recognize that she has the right to refuse it. I am fine with that. But if we apply Christian principles and plain old logic, how unreasonable is she being, and or how unreasonable is it for me to have the thoughts that I have and feel her position is not only unreasonable, but irrational? I recognize this is a bit long, and I know it gets tricky with the topic of religion. If you don't share with your followers, which you ain't even got to say that because I just did, I still like to hear your thoughts on this scenario. Wishing you continued success, Zainab, and safety in your travels. Peace, Aubrey. So it does seem like this is about religion, but it's actually not. It's actually about personalities. So yeah, we know this to be true. Some people that are of monotheistic faiths, Muslim, Christian, Jewish, some people that are of monotheistic faiths have a really hard time dealing with things that are representative of the spiritual world outside of that God, right? Outside of, for Christians, it's like if you ain't talking about God and you know, Jesus Christ, then I can't really get on board with nothing. I can't get on board with, oh, you said that's a healing stone. I don't know if that, oh, you saying that's a psychic. I don't know if I'm opening up you know what I'm saying? I'm not trying to open up a portal to the bad side, right? Because I think a lot of people who have monotheistic faiths, because I'm trying not to just keep this on Christianity, because I completely understand it. Because I remember the first time my friend got me like a psychic reading as a gift, I was sitting there trying to be open to it, but the whole time I was reciting Al-Fatiha. The lady talking, and I was like, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, Alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen, Rahmanirrahim, in my mind. Maliki Almadin, Iyaka Na'budu wa Iyaka Nasta'in, Ihdina Siratal Mustaqim, Siratal Ladzina An'amta Alaihim, like not playing the whole time. Every time she said, anytime I saw her doing something that looked a little bit weird to me, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, like Al-Fatiha over again. Oh Allah, please protect me. Oh Allah, please, like, oh Allah, like. So I completely get it, which is why I'm saying monotheistic. So I don't even want us to get bogged down in the religion of it all, because it ain't about religion, right? And I get that too. I talk about that too. Even when we hear like all of the like really, really like strict, you know, like sometimes we hear like really, really strict, you know, maybe like Protestant or but like, I don't want to put this on any specific group, but like to talk about abortion, like, oh, this is like a sin, and but it's like, oh, didn't God create the doctor, and the doctor didn't God know that if God creates everything, well, didn't He create all these things? So how is it against God? Because didn't God create all these things, right? It's like, let me tell you, that's a rabbit hole that is infinity, never stops, right? And you ain't never going to win challenging somebody's faith, because what faith is the belief in something that you have not seen. And so that has to be so strong, because the proof is in a feeling. The proof is in spirit. The proof is not in something tangible. So it's going to be very hard to, like, with most people, to argue, especially your friend who is in a very trying situation, but it's personality. So she called you and said, hey, I'm so sorry. Because of my faith, I can't accept this. And you was like, oh, I totally understand. No problem whatsoever. Get rid of it. It's no big deal. As I said in the first paragraph, it was only $7. So this ain't even like you throwing away money, right? You was fine with it. But then she called you again. She hadn't let it go. That's a personality thing. And I bet you, Aubrey, if you think about your friendship with her, I bet you aside from this, you could think about another thing in your past where you thought y'all was done with it. And she was like, but not yet. But not yet. I just want to, and some people, when they're not done with it, and you know how some people are like, and I still want to argue about it, but some people are like, I just wanted to apologize again. I actually thought about like, dang, I should apologize again to somebody. And I'm like, I think we decided, I think it was it was solidified that we talked about it, we disagree, and we agreed to disagree, but we also agreed that there was no malice and no hurt feelings. And so I am having this constant dialogue in my head and wanting them to kind of reassure me. And so she probably needs your reassurance. Like, right? And you believe in this too, right? Because I believe only God is going to heal me. And if you believed it, right? So I just wanted to apologize and thank you. And she's probably really looking for you to confirm for her, give her the confirmation that she needs. So it's like a personality thing. And so I don't think that this is necessarily a question of reason, but I think you may have to, especially given her situation, you are in the position of exercising a bit more grace in regards to her personality. And in this instance, the thing happened to be religion. Now, I know sometimes we exercise a lot of grace when people are in trying and traumatic situations that we may not be going through. It's almost like survivor's remorse, right? Survivor's guilt. I'm doing better, and so I'm going to exercise a bit more grace for this person who is worse off at this moment. And sometimes it goes too far. So while I encourage you, or I ask you, or I suggest to you, Aubrey, that you lean on grace, I also say boundaries. If she call you again, like, yeah, in the stone, girl, I don't know, but am I going to have to go get a positivity stone, a shut up stone to shut you up? Because, girl, you told me, I said, okay, I ain't brought you a stone since. I ain't brought you or bought you a stone since. So let's let the stones go. So grace and boundaries. I hope that helps. Anybody that's listening, if you have some advice for Aubrey, go ahead and drop it in the comments. You guys, thank you so much for listening. Like I said, I may be a little bit late, or, the tech stuff might not all be there, but I'm going to try and come to you guys every single week while I am here in Vancouver. So thank you again for listening. Be as reasonable as you can, and I will talk to you guys next week. Bye.